Now we come to transitional provisions. Now you will say, what are transitional provisions? Just as in the case of a marriage, when the girl goes from her own house to her in-laws house, in that case many things happen in between. That is the transitional phase. Generally the name also changes, the address also changes, and all these changes have to be incorporated in the Aadhaar card, in the ration card, in the passport, in the bank accounts. The bank accounts have to be shifted, and even the physical, the clothes, the suitcases, and so many things have to be shifted from one residence to the other residence, maybe in the same city or in other city or another state also. So these are the transitional provisions, and definitely issues are there, but they have to be taken care of because so that there is a smooth transition. In the case of GST also, there will be a transition from one or rather more than one laws, from current laws of service tax, VAT, different VAT laws, excise duty, entry tax, etc. There will be transition from all these laws to the new law, that is GST. And to ensure that the problems are not there because of this shifting, we should take care of the transitional provisions. We should ensure that we get the due credit on our of input credit on our stocks which are there on the closing date. One day before the appointed date, whatever the stock is there, we should get input tax credit on that. Then what will happen to the goods lying with the consignment agents in the new regime? Similarly, if I am a regular dealer now and in the GST regime I want to go into the composition scheme, then what will happen? Or vice versa. Then what will happen to return of goods in the post GST period? Let us say you have sold some goods and in the pre-GST period, and these goods are returned back or partly returned back in the post-GST period. What will happen? Will GST be levied again, though earlier taxes have already been paid? Similarly, when goods are sent to the job worker in the pre-GST regime and they are returned back to you in the post-GST regime, what will happen? Will GST be levied there? Are there some conditions which need to be followed so that we get exemption from GST? One of them is that the goods should be returned back to the same premises from where they were sent. So we should be aware about these provisions, otherwise it will be late once GST comes, and most of these transitional provisions should be taken care of in this intervening period. Once GST comes, then most of these provisions will already be applicable and we will not be able to do much about that. So preparation for this should start even before GST comes. Similarly, some goods were sold and later on the party is not making the payment, and then some negotiations take place. Some issues were there regarding the quality, etc., regarding the service, etc. And then you say, okay, don't pay me 1 lakh, you pay me just 80,000 rupees. So what will happen to this 20,000 discount that you have given? Because service tax or VAT was charged on the full amount of 1 lakh rupees. So this again is a part of transitional provision. Similarly, pending refunds, litigations, demands, etc. Of service tax, of different VAT laws, etc. What will happen to them? Pending returns, revision of returns, all these issues. So they have to be taken care of under the transitional provisions, and detailed provisions are there in the Model GST Act. Please go through them, and that will give a lot of clarity to you how you have to proceed regarding them. Coming to migration under GST, as we are aware that each of the existing indirect tax assessees will have to migrate to the GST regime, and already this work has started, and this is being done in a phased manner. Now you will ask, why a phased manner? Why not all the assessees should be asked to migrate within a particular time period? Because the number of assessees is huge. Over 80 lakh assessees are there, indirect tax assessees, and if everybody starts migrating in the same time period, you can well imagine what will happen to the traffic at the website, at the GST Common Portal. That is why we are having a phased implementation, wherein for different states, like for southern states, there is a different phase. For northern states, for the northeastern states, for the central states, there was a separate time period was assigned to them. Similarly, for service tax assessees, for excise assessees who are not VAT payers, in all these cases, people were asked to migrate to GST in different phases so that there could be a smooth transition. Now, another important question comes as to when should I apply for registration? Now we are talking about a fresh registration under GST. Let us say that GST has already come into operation and now all the old laws, whether the various state VAT laws, service tax, etc. have gone, and now a new dealer wants to apply for registration. We are talking about him. So what is the date when he should apply for registration, in how many days, or what the turnover limit is should be there, that we want to see now. So for the northeastern states and hilly states, including Sikkim, Jammu and Kashmir, Uttaranchal, Uttarakhand, etc., one has to apply for registration if the sales turnover exceeds rupees 10 lakhs. So once the sale turnover exceeds 10 lakhs, he has to apply for registration. For the rest of India, the limit is 20 lakhs. So if the sales exceeds 20 lakhs or the supplies exceed 20 lakhs, in that case one has to apply for registration. Now let us very clearly understand that this limit is pan-India. So if a person has different registrations within the state or in multiple states, then this limit will be considered as a whole. So if I have taken a registration in Delhi and my sale is already exceeded 20 lakhs, I have taken Delhi registration. Now I want to take a registration in Haryana also. So from day one I will have to apply for registration in Haryana, because pan-India my limit has already exceeded 20 lakhs. You will remember that in the earlier regime, the limit was state-wise in the VAT laws. Though for service tax there was a single limit for the entire country of 10 lakhs, but for states there was a separate limit for each state. But now we have a pan-India, a single limit of 10 lakhs for northeastern and hilly states and 20 lakhs for the rest of India. And one has to apply for 30 days from the date of liability, from becoming liable. That is when the sale proceeds exceed this limit that we have talked about. Then one has to apply for registration. What if he does not apply for registration within this time? Then he will lose the input tax liability of the earlier bills. So it is important to apply within 30 days from become liable to GST. Composition scheme. Now, to help out small traders, dealers, manufacturers, etc., the GST has come out with a composition scheme. I think composition scheme is not new to you. It was there even in the VAT laws, Delhi VAT also, and other VAT laws also. It was there. It is basically to help out the small dealers so that they have lesser compliance burden. For that primary reason, this composition scheme is offered to them. In the case of GST, the composition scheme has been offered only to manufacturers and traders. It is not available for service providers like chartered accountants, like advocates, like actors, etc. It is not allowed for them. And even for manufacturers and traders, the turnover should be up to rupees 50 lakhs. So till 50 lakhs you can avail the composition scheme, but beyond 50 lakhs you will have to go for the regular scheme. Another important fact of composition scheme is that you have to make the sales within the state. You cannot make interstate sales. You can, if you have applied for registration as a composition supplier in Delhi, then you can make sales in Delhi itself. You cannot make sales to NCR like Gurgaon or Faridabad, etc. You cannot make these sales because this will be interstate sale. What more important about a composition dealer? He will not be able to claim any input tax credit of the purchases that he has made. All the input taxes that he has paid will be part of his cost. Similarly, he will not be able to charge any tax from the buyer. Now you will say he will not charge any tax from the buyer, so he will not have to pay any tax? No, he will have to pay tax at a specified rate. So what is the specified rate? In the case of traders, it is 2%. A total of 2%, that is CGST 1% and 1% SGST, which makes a total of 2%. In the case of manufacturers, it is CGST is expected to be 2.50%, SGST again 2.50%, which makes a total of 5%. What about IGST? IGST will not be applicable in the case of composition dealer. As I said, he will not be able to make any interstate sales. Now the structure of GST-e or the provisional ID. If you look to the provisional ID that is being provided and which later on will be converted to GST-e only, the same number will become GST-e once GST comes into operation. And you will see there are 15 alphabets and characters in this provisional ID or the GST-e. And what these denote, let us understand. The first two digits represent the state code. So if the first two digits of the GST or the provisional ID are 07, that means this is a assessee who is registered under GST in the state of Delhi. Next 10 characters and numbers represent the PAN number. So whenever you see a GST, the 3rd to the 12th character will represent the PAN number. So you can know what the PAN number of this assessee is. Then the 13th digit will be the entity code in the state. Now, what is this entity code? As you are aware that a person, if he wants, can take multiple registrations within the state for different business verticals as defined under the Model GST Act. And if he takes different registrations for different verticals, like for textiles he takes another registration, for petrochemicals he takes another registration, for pharmaceuticals he takes another registration. In that case, let us say he applied for textiles first, so the first number will, the 13 digit will be 1 in that case. Then if he applies for petrochemicals, then the 13 digit will be 2 in that case. So looking to the 13 digit, you can also know how many registrations that person has within that state. Next two digits, that is the 14th and the 15th digits, they are for computerized operations. You need not be knowing much about that.